Today on the Retail Edge, we're lucky enough to have Tim McFarland, the founder of CEO Forums. It's a purveyor of wisdom and mentorship for growing companies. Tim, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Jeff.
Glad you're here.
Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what you're doing with the CEO Forums.
Okay, I'm glad to. So I started out in banking, I had an accounting degree, and I got into commercial lending, and I had the opportunity to get kind of over-promoted over my younger years and had the opportunity to work with a lot of great CEOs. Sure. And I've always been I always found it interesting the challenges CEOs are faced with when they're leading companies. Sure. And that led me over the years to eventually run a bank at also kind of a young age, and eventually got into what I do now, which is CEO forums and peer advisory groups. Sure. Where we get together in small groups and help one another out with the challenges and the issues that CEOs are faced with, which is wide, varying, and challenging.
And so as a leader in a supplier to Walmart, for example, a CPG company, a growing company, they might feel alone an awful lot of the time. What can a CEO forum typically do for someone like that?
Well, that's a great question, because it is lonely, and you're faced with so many different situations, challenges,
sure.
And you do feel alone. And when people come into the CEO forums, it's a monthly opportunity. It's on the calendar, sure. 3 hours a month to get together with peers in a trusted environment to process issues, topics, and challenges that you face. And if you can come into that kind of environment in any regard, whether it be peers, whether it be mentors consistently, then you're going to go back and you're going to execute better. And you're also going to learn from the rest of the group in terms of listening to their challenges. You know, when you get into leadership, there's no time to practice leadership.
Right.
There's no way
right.
So we don't practice, it's all live. So this gives you an opportunity to come and learn and see what others are dealing with, real world issues,
sure.
that they're dealing with, so that you can, when that does come to you, you can remember how Jeff Amerine handled that challenge back
sure.
2 years ago.
That peer-to-peer aspect is something you don't get in a lot of companies. If you're the person, you're the leader, there's not often a lot of times people you can go to. You can't really go to the board to kind of kick those things around. So I get that. That's really, really interesting. And so as you think about it, having a financial background, doing all the CEO mentoring, what are some of the key issues or mistakes or things that you've seen people make on the financial side as they're trying to grow a business, a supplier or otherwise?
Yeah, well, I think if you're a supplier and you're working with a Fortune 1 or someone like that, you really want to be thoughtful to, if you're going to grow fast, how you're going to be able to do that in a balanced way, how you're going to be able to understand how that dynamic works, what kind of capital, what kind of structure you're going to need, the right balance. You need to have a balanced balance sheet, know how you're going to get that funding to be able to race up like some of the opportunities you have when you deal with large suppliers. So I think that's key. I think the other thing when you're growing is just having some liquidity, having
sure.
some diversification in your customer base.
That account concentration can be a big deal, right?
It really can. Yeah. I mean, you could if you look at an enterprise that has 2 customers. Mm-hmm. Well, it's worth 2 or 3 times cash flow. If it's
right.
got 4 customers and one of them happens to be Fortune 1, then it's worth 4 or 5 or 6 times cash flow.
Sure.
So it really means a lot. Plus, just getting the support of creditors and investors to support that kind of growth.
Absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. We talk a lot too about the number one asset of any business is talent. And I know in the CEO forum, there's a lot of discussion about how to attract talent and retain it. Talk a little bit about that.
You bet. It does come up a lot. And I think one of the things that we encourage through my mentor, who also led CEO forums in Phoenix, Jim Myers, is if you will think about the people who've come before you that were stellar performers, and if you will think about the attributes of those people who have been your stellar performers in your organization or working for you, there's usually 3 or 4 qualities. You can then think about who else you're bringing in to make sure they're kind of aligned, because right. usually the differences we have happen to deal with culture.
Culture's really important,
yes,
isn't it?
Absolutely,
yeah.
It really is. So I think that gets you off to a good start. And then the question is, how do you give meaning to the people's work and efforts? So it's being a positive leader, a thoughtful leader.
Sure.
It's finding ways to see them doing things well. I have my super A player here with me today, and I find, daily almost something she does great, and I love sharing that with her.
The secret to your success is finding and hiring people that are better than you, right? And then feeling good about their success.
Yes,
Makes a lot
I
of
think
sense.
that's right. As you continue to lead, you delight in the success of others. It's key to a leadership role.
What other things have you seen come from this peer-to-peer mentoring that's possible in the CEO forum has really been beneficial that suppliers could draw from and say, that's something I really need? What are some examples of issues that have been tackled?
I think the biggest thing that anyone would get if they came into a peer advisory group is whatever challenges they're dealing with. Once they get through working with the others about whatever challenges they are dealing with, you feel a lot better about. Everyone has a pretty big challenge,
sure.
And when you get that one kind of under control, another one will be emerging. So you kind of realize that that's part of leadership. Is you're always dealing with something that's pretty daunting, or not totally daunting, but challenging, and it stretches you. You go back and you're a little more calm, and you say, I don't have it near as challenging as one of my peers there, and I'm just glad to have the opportunity to have this challenge.
No, that's fantastic insight for sure. And as you think about what the next 5 years looks like for the supplier community, and as some of these companies are growing, and clearly Walmart is going to continue to be a force, what are a few points of advice you'd give leaders in these growing companies that are kind of in the periphery of Walmart?
I think if you're a growth company, the biggest challenge is you're growing, you've got it going, but all of a sudden the company is evolving and it has different kinds of resource needs at the C-suite or around the C-suite.
Right.
And it's going to cost quite a bit of time and capital to bring those kind of people in.
Sure.
And you always have to invest. You're finally making maybe some really decent money.
Sure.
But you could spend half your capital, or half your earnings, I should say, maybe half or a lot of it. You're going to maybe even fall back a year to be able to invest in some key people that are pretty substantial that can take you to the next 5 years
level.
that you just have to have, and they're expensive and they're worth it because human resources are the key.
That's
to
everything, right?
Yeah.
Tim, thanks so much for coming in this week. Fantastic insights. Everybody ought to take a look at the CEO forums that Tim runs. Coming up right after this will be the remainder of the Saturday Morning Meeting.